The dust swirled around Sarah Ashford's worn boots as she stepped off the afternoon stage into Wichita, Kansas, carrying nothing but a battered carpet bag and the weight of a reputation she did not deserve. It was August 1878, and the prairie heat shimmered off the wooden buildings that lined the main street, but the cold stares from the townspeople felt colder than any winter wind. She had traveled 300 miles to escape the whispers in her old town, only to discover that her ex-husband's poison had spread faster than she could run. Charles had always been a persuasive man, and his letters to distant relatives in Wichita had painted her as a woman touched by madness, unstable and dangerous. Sarah kept her chin up despite the way conversation stopped when she passed. She was 24 years old, and the past 2 years had aged her in ways that had nothing to do with time. Her dark hair was pinned back severely, and her calico dress was faded but clean. She had sewn it herself during the long nights after Charles had finally signed the divorce papers, each stitch a small act of reclaiming her life. The marriage had lasted 3 years, and for 2 of them she had lived in a carefully constructed prison where her husband controlled every aspect of her existence. When she had finally found the courage to leave, he had retaliated in the cruelest way possible, spreading lies that followed her like shadows. The boarding house was at the end of Main Street, a 2-story structure with peeling white paint and a sagging porch. The landlady, Mrs. Henderson, was a severe woman with gray hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her face. She looked Sarah up and down with obvious disapproval. "I received a letter about you, Mrs." Henderson said, her voice clipped. "From a Mr. Charles Whitmore. He said you were his former wife and that you had suffered from spells of hysteria." Sarah's hands tightened on her carpet bag. "Charles is a liar, madam. I left him because he was cruel. The only hysteria I suffered was trying to survive his temper." Mrs. Henderson's expression did not soften. "Be that as it may, I run a respectable establishment. I will rent you a room, but I will be watching. Any trouble, and you will be out on the street." The room was small and sparse, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a single window that overlooked the alley. Sarah set down her bag and sat on the edge of the bed, allowing herself one moment of despair before straightening her shoulders. She had not come this far to give up. She needed work, and she needed to prove to this town that she was not the broken, unstable woman Charles had described. The next morning, Sarah walked through town looking for employment. She tried the general store first, but the owner, a portly man with suspicious eyes, told her he had no positions available. The dressmaker said the same, though Sarah could see unfinished work piled on every surface. The restaurant owner did not even let her finish her question before shaking his head. By noon, Sarah's hope was beginning to fray at the edges. She was standing outside the mercantile trying to decide where to try next when she heard the sound of horses approaching. 4 men rode down the main street, and even in her distracted state, Sarah noticed the way people stepped back to give them room. The lead rider was tall and broad-shouldered, sitting his horse with the easy confidence of someone who had spent more time in the saddle than on the ground. He wore a dark hat pulled low, and his face was tanned from years under the prairie sun. There was something about the way he carried himself that drew her attentions, a quiet strength that needed no announcement. The men disseminated outside the saloon, and Sarah watched as the tall rider said something to his companions that made them laugh. His voice was deep and carried a warmth that seemed at odds with his weathered appearance. Then his eyes swept the street and landed on her. For a moment their gazes locked, and Sarah saw something unexpected in his expression. Not judgment or suspicion, but simple curiosity. She looked away quickly, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. She was not here to catch anyone's attention. She was here to rebuild her life, alone, if necessary. That evening, Sarah returned to the boarding house empty-handed and exhausted. Mrs. Henderson informed her that the week's rent was due in advance, and Sarah counted out precious coins from her dwindling supply. She had enough for perhaps 2 more weeks if she was careful, and then she would have nothing. The next day brought more rejection. Sarah tried the hotel, the livery stable, even the newspaper office. Everywhere she went, she could feel the weight of Charles's lies preceding her. People looked at her with a mixture of pity and fear, as though madness might be contagious. By afternoon, she found herself sitting on a bench near the town square, fighting back tears of frustration. "Excuse me, madam." Sarah looked up to find the tall rider from the previous day standing before her, his hat in his hands. Up close, she could see that he was perhaps 27 or 28, with striking blue eyes and a strong jawline marked by a few days of stubble. There was a scar above his left eyebrow, a thin white line that suggested an old injury. "I do not mean to intrude," he said, his voice gentle, "but I could not help but notice you have been going door to door. Are you looking for work?" Sarah stood instinctively defensive. "I am, though I do not see how that concerns you, sir." He did not seem offended by her tone. "My name is Aaron Lawson. I run a ranch about 5 miles outside of town. My housekeeper left last month to live with her daughter in Dodge City, and I have been looking for someone to take her place. It is honest work, cooking and cleaning, and the pay is fair." Sarah stared at him, searching his face for signs of mockery or ulterior motives. "You would hire me? Even though you have heard the rumors, I am certain." Aaron's expression grew serious. "I have heard some talk. Yes, your ex-husband has been quite thorough in spreading his version of events, but I find it interesting that a man would work so hard to destroy a woman's reputation after she has already left him. It suggests to me that he is the one with something to hide, not you." Sarah felt something loosen in her chest, a knot of tension she had been carrying for so long she had forgotten it was there. "He wants to punish me for leaving. He cannot stand that I chose my freedom over his control." "Then he is a fool," Aaron said simply. "I lost my own mother to a man like that. She died believing she deserved the way he treated her. I see a woman who survived, Miss Ashford, Sarah Ashford. Miss Ashford, I am offering you honest employment with fair wages. You would have your own room in the house, and you would be expected to prepare meals and maintain the household. I spend most of my time working the ranch with my men, so you would have the place mostly to yourself during the day. I give you my word that I will treat you with respect and expect nothing beyond the work we agree upon." Sarah wanted to be cautious, to question his motives, but there was something in his eyes that made her believe him. More than that, she desperately needed this opportunity. "When would you want me to start?" "Tomorrow, if you're willing. I can come by with a wagon at sunrise to collect you and your things." That night, Sarah packed her few belongings with hands that trembled slightly. She did not know if she was making a wise decision or a foolish one, but she knew she could not stay in town waiting for opportunities that would never come. Mrs. Henderson seemed almost relieved when Sarah told her she would be leaving in the morning. Aaron arrived promptly at dawn, driving a sturdy wagon pulled by 2 bay horses. He helped Sarah load her carpet bag and a small trunk she had been storing in her room, then assisted her onto the wagon seat with courteous efficiency. As they rode out of Wichita, Sarah watched the sun rise over the prairie, painting the grasslands in shades of gold and amber. The land stretched endlessly in all directions, and for the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. Aaron's ranch was a well-maintained property with a 2-story house, a large barn, several outbuildings, and extensive corrals. Sarah could see cattle grazing in the distance, and 3 men were already at work near the barn. Aaron introduced her briefly to his ranch hands, Tom, Pete, and young Billy, who could not have been more than 19. They all touched their hat brims respectfully, and Sarah detected none of the suspicion she had encountered in town. The house was spacious and clearly built by someone who understood the harsh Kansas weather. The walls were thick, and the windows were positioned to catch the cross breeze. Aaron showed her through the main floor, pointing out the kitchen, the dining room, and the parlor. Her room was upstairs, a comfortable space with a real bed frame, a dresser, and windows that overlooked the prairie. "The previous housekeeper left some supplies in the pantry," Aaron explained as they returned to the kitchen. "But you should make a list of anything you need, and I will bring it from town. I usually eat breakfast before dawn and supper after sunset. Lunch is whatever can be managed, since I'm often working far from the house. Sarah nodded, already mentally cataloging the kitchen and planning meals. I can manage that. Do your ranch hands eat here as well? No. They have their own cook shack near the bunkhouse. It is just you and me in the main house. He paused, as if aware of how that might sound. I want you to feel safe here, Miss Ashford. If at any time you feel uncomfortable or wish to leave, I will take you back to town, no questions asked. Thank you, Mr. Lawson. I appreciate your consideration. Aaron, please. We are going to be sharing a house. No need for such formality. Then you should call me Sarah. He smiled and it transformed his face, softening the hard lines carved by years of outdoor work. Sarah it is. The first few days established a rhythm. Sarah woke early to prepare breakfast, and Aaron was always polite and grateful for the food. He would disappear for the day, and she would spend her time cleaning, organizing, and exploring the well-stocked pantry. In the evenings, they would share supper, and Aaron would tell her about the ranch work, his plans for expanding the herd, the challenges of managing land in a territory that could be both beautiful and brutal. Sarah found herself looking forward to those evening conversations. Aaron was an easy man to talk to, never prying, but always interested when she chose to share. He told her about growing up in Missouri, about coming to Kansas after the war to start fresh. He did not mention which side he had fought on, and Sarah did not ask. The war had divided too many families and created too many wounds that still had not healed. One evening, about a week after Sarah's arrival, Aaron came in later than usual, his shirt torn and his hands scraped raw. What happened? Sarah asked, immediately concerned. One of the fence posts broke and some cattle got through. Took us hours to round them up and fix the fence. He winced as he tried to flex his hands. Sit down, Sarah ordered, already moving toward the pump to get clean water. Let me see those hands. Aaron obeyed, sinking into a chair at the kitchen table. Sarah brought a basin of water and clean cloths, then carefully began cleaning the scrapes and cuts. Her touch was gentle but efficient, and Aaron watched her face as she worked, noting the way she bit her lower lip in concentration. You are good at this, he said quietly. I had practice. Charles was always hurting himself, though usually it was the furniture or the walls that bore the brunt of his temper, not his own hands. She said it matter-of-factly, but Aaron heard the pain beneath the words. How long were you married to him? 3 years. The first year was not so bad, or maybe I was just good at making excuses for him. The second year, he started drinking more and getting angry about everything I did or did not do. By the third year, I was walking on eggshells every moment, trying not to set him off. But it did not matter what I did. He always found a reason. Aaron was quiet for a moment as she bandaged his hands with strips of clean cloth. What made you finally leave? Sarah finished tying off the bandage before answering. He broke my arm. He was drunk and angry that supper was not ready. Even though I had been ready for an hour, and he was the one who came home late, he shoved me and I fell against the stove. When I went to the doctor, I told him I had tripped, but I do not think he believed me. Something about the way the doctor looked at me with such pity made me realize I could not keep living that way. So I waited until my arm healed, and then I took what little money I had saved and I left. That took courage. Sarah looked up, surprised by the admiration in his voice. It took desperation. I was not brave. I was just tired of being afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear, Aaron said. It is doing what needs to be done despite the fear. You survived something that destroys a lot of people and you kept going. That is the definition of brave. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes and she blinked them back fiercely. Charles did not see it that way. When I filed for divorce, he told everyone I was unstable, that I had imagined his cruelty, that I was prone to hysteria and delusions. He is a respected businessman in our town, and people believed him. Even my own family started to doubt me. Aaron reached across the table with his newly bandaged hand and gently touched her wrist. I believe you, and anyone who takes the time to know you will see the truth. The touch was brief, but Sarah felt the warmth of it long after Aaron had withdrawn his hand. That night, lying in her comfortable bed and listening to the prairie wind whistle around the house, she realized she was beginning to feel something she had not felt in years: hope. The weeks passed, and summer deepened into the golden heat of late August. Sarah settled into the rhythm of ranch life, and the constant work was oddly soothing. She took pride in keeping the house spotless, in preparing meals that Aaron clearly enjoyed, in creating small touches of comfort, like fresh flowers on the table or curtains for the parlor windows. Aaron never failed to notice and thank her, and his genuine appreciation made her feel valued in a way she had forgotten was possible. They began taking evening walks after supper, strolling around the ranch while Aaron pointed out constellations or told her stories about the land. Sarah found herself laughing more than she had in years, and she caught Aaron watching her sometimes with an expression that made her heart beat faster. One evening in early September, they were sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Aaron said, "I need to go into town tomorrow for supplies. Would you like to come with me?" Sarah's immediate instinct was to refuse. The thought of facing the townspeople again, of seeing the judgment in their eyes, made her stomach clench. But she also knew she could not hide on the ranch forever. "Yes," she said, forcing strength into her voice. "I would like that." The next morning they rode into Wichita together on the wagon. Sarah wore her best dress, a blue calico she had carefully mended and pressed. As they entered town, she could feel eyes on them, and she heard the whispers start. Aaron seemed oblivious to it all, greeting people politely as he tied up the horses outside the general store. Inside, Sarah was making her way down the aisles with her list when she heard a familiar voice that made her blood run cold. "Sarah? Sarah Ashford, is that really you?" She turned to see Charles Whitmore standing at the end of the aisle. He looked exactly as she remembered, his brown hair slicked back, his suit expensive, his smile predatory. He was 32 years old, and the years had been kind to him in a way they never were to the people he hurt. "Charles," she kept her voice steady, "what are you doing in Wichita?" "I came to check on you, my dear. I heard you had taken a position as a housekeeper for some rancher. I was worried about you all alone out there. You know how you get when you are under stress." His voice was smooth, concerned, and completely false. "I am perfectly fine, Charles. Better than I ever was with you." His expression hardened. "Now, Sarah, there is no need to be dramatic. I know you are still upset about the divorce, but spreading lies about me will not change anything. I have tried to be understanding about your condition, but you are making it very difficult." "My condition?" Sarah felt anger flare hot in her chest. "The only condition I had was being married to you." Charles took a step closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "Careful, Sarah. People already think you are unstable. Do not give them more reason to believe it." "Is there a problem here?" Aaron's voice cut through the tension like a knife. He stepped around the corner, and Sarah saw him take in the situation instantly. Charles straightened, affecting a friendly smile. "No problem at all. I am Charles Whitmore, Sarah's former husband. I was just checking on her welfare." "Aaron Lawson, and Sarah's welfare is just fine. In fact, she is the best housekeeper I have ever had, reliable, hardworking, and completely in command of her faculties." Charles's smile did not reach his eyes. "I'm glad to hear it. Sarah has always been prone to episodes, but perhaps the structure of employment is good for her." "The only episode I see," Aaron said calmly, "is a man who cannot let go of a woman who was smart enough to leave him. That tells me everything I need to know about who the real problem is." Charles's face flushed with anger. "You have no idea what you are talking about. Sarah is my wife." "Ex-wife," Sarah interrupted firmly. "We are divorced, Charles. You have no claim on me." "I was trying to protect your reputation," Charles hissed. "But if you want to ruin yourself by living alone with some cowboy, that is your choice. Just remember, when he gets tired of you and throws you out, no one will take you in." Aaron stepped forward, and despite being roughly the same height as Charles, he seemed to loom over him. "You need to leave. Now." Charles looked at Aaron, then at Sarah, then back at Aaron. Whatever he saw in Aaron's face made him step back. "This is not over, Sarah. You are still my responsibility, whether you like it or not." "The only responsibility you have," Aaron said, "is to stay away from her. If I hear you have been bothering her or spreading more lies, you and I are going to have a conversation you will not enjoy." Charles turned and stalked out of the store. Sarah realized she was shaking, and she gripped the shelf to steady herself. Aaron was beside her immediately, his hand gentle on her elbow. "Are you all right?" Sarah nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again. "I do not know. I thought I was prepared to see him, but hearing him twist everything again, acting like he is the victim." "He is a bully and a coward," Aaron said flatly, "and everyone in this store just heard him threaten you and heard me tell him to leave you alone. Let them spread that story for a change." Sarah looked around and realized that several people were watching them with varying expressions of shock and curiosity. Mrs. Henderson was standing near the fabric section, her eyes wide. The store owner, who had refused to hire Sarah, was frowning thoughtfully. Aaron kept his hand on Sarah's elbow as they finished their shopping, a gesture of both support and public declaration. When they left the store, several people nodded to Sarah with less hostility than before. The encounter with Charles had been awful, but it had also shown the town a different side of the story. On the ride back to the ranch, Sarah was quiet, processing everything that had happened. Finally, she said, "Thank you for standing up for me. No one has ever done that before." "You do not need to thank me for basic decency," Aaron replied, "though I will admit it took everything in me not to hit him." "I am glad you did not. He would have used that against both of us." "I know. But if he comes near you again, I cannot promise I will be so restrained." Sarah looked at Aaron's profile, the strong line of his jaw, the way his hands held the reins with confident ease. "Why are you doing this? Why do you care what happens to me?" Aaron was silent for so long that Sarah thought he might not answer. Then he pulled the wagon to a stop in the middle of the empty prairie road and turned to face her. "Because from the moment I saw you sitting on that bench in town, looking so lost and so determined at the same time, I have not been able to stop thinking about you because you are brave and strong and you deserve to be treated with respect. Because when you smile, which is not often enough, it is like the sun coming out. And because I see you, Sarah, not the lies your ex-husband told, not the broken woman he tried to make you. I see a woman who survived, who kept going when most people would have given up. I see someone worth knowing, worth caring about." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "Aaron, I am not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I know you have been through hell, and the last thing you need is someone else trying to control your life. I just wanted you to know that I see you, the real you, and what I see is remarkable." Sarah felt tears spill down her cheeks, but for once they were not tears of pain or frustration. "I see you too," she whispered, "and what I see is the kindest man I have ever met." Aaron reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently wiped the tears from her face with his thumb. "Then maybe, if you are willing, we could see where this goes. No pressure, no expectations, just two people getting to know each other." Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. Aaron smiled and picked up the reins again. But before he urged the horses forward, Sarah reached over and took his hand. He laced his fingers through hers, and they drove the rest of the way to the ranch like that, hand in hand under the vast Kansas sky. The days that followed were different, charged with a new awareness. Aaron still treated Sarah with respect and courtesy, but there was an ease between them now, a recognition of feelings that had been building since the beginning. They talked more openly about their pasts, their hopes, their fears. Aaron told her about his parents, how his father had died in the war, and his mother had married a man who slowly crushed her spirit until she died before her time. "I swore I would never be like him," Aaron said one evening as they sat on the porch, "and I swore I would never stand by while someone treated a woman the way he treated my mother. That is why I could not ignore what was happening to you in town. It was like watching her all over again, except this time I was old enough to do something about it. Sarah squeezed his hand. You saved me, you know. Not like some fairy tale hero, but in a real way. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You believed in me when I was having trouble believing in myself. You saved yourself, Aaron corrected. I just held the door open. You were the one brave enough to walk through it. September gave way to October, and the prairie began to change colors. The grass turned gold and amber, and the air took on a crispness that promised winter was not far behind. Sarah had been at the ranch for nearly 3 months, and it had become home in a way nowhere else ever had. She knew every corner of the house, every quirk of the wood stove, every sunset view from the porch. She also knew that she was falling in love with Aaron Lawson. It was there in the way her heart jumped when she heard his footsteps on the porch, in the way she found herself cooking his favorite meals just to see his face light up, in the way she saved small stories from her day to share with him at supper, in the way she felt safe for the first time in years, truly safe, because she knew Aaron would never hurt her. The question was whether Aaron felt the same way, or if his kindness was simply who he was with everyone. She thought she saw affection in his eyes, felt it in the way he found excuses to touch her hand or stand close to her. But she had been so wrong about Charles that she did not trust her own judgment anymore. The answer came on a chilly evening in late October. Aaron had been working on repairing the barn roof, and he came in for supper with sawdust in his hair and a satisfied expression. Sarah had made stew and fresh bread, and they ate companionably, talking about the ranch and the approaching winter. After supper, Aaron hesitated instead of heading out for his usual evening check of the property. Sarah, would you walk with me? There is something I want to show you. Curious, Sarah followed him outside. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple. Aaron led her to the top of a small rise behind the house, where they could see the ranch spread out below and the endless prairie stretching to the horizon. When I first came here, Aaron said, I stood on this spot and imagined what I wanted to build. A ranch, yes, but more than that. A home, a life. I wanted to create something good, something lasting. But I always knew something was missing. I just could not figure out what it was. He turned to face her, and Sarah's breath caught at the intensity in his eyes. Then you came into my life, and suddenly everything made sense. You are what was missing, Sarah. You are the piece that makes this feel like home instead of just a place to work. These past 3 months have been the happiest I can remember, and it is because of you. Aaron, Let me finish, he said gently. I know you have been hurt badly. I know you have every reason to be cautious about trusting someone again. I am not asking you to rush into anything. But I need you to know how I feel. I am in love with you, Sarah Ashford. I love your strength and your courage. I love the way you hum when you are cooking. I love your laugh and your stubbornness and the way you refuse to let the world make you small. I love everything about you, and I would be honored if you would consider letting me court you properly. Sarah felt her heart swell until she thought it might burst. You love me? With everything I have. Even though I come with a past full of complications and an ex-husband who will not leave me alone, your past is part of what made you who you are. As for your ex-husband, he will learn to leave you alone or he will have me to deal with. None of that changes how I feel. Sarah reached up and touched Aaron's face, feeling the rough stubble under her palm. I love you too. I have been so scared to admit it, even to myself, but I do. You have shown me what it means to be treated with kindness and respect. You have given me a safe place to heal. And somewhere along the way, I fell completely in love with you. Aaron's face lit up with joy, and he pulled her into his arms. Sarah went willingly, resting her head against his chest and listening to the steady beat of his heart. They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other's arms as the sun set and the stars began to appear. Then Aaron tilted her face up, and kissed her, gently at first, then with growing passion. Sarah kissed him back, pouring all her love and hope and relief into that kiss. It was nothing like the demanding, controlling kisses Charles had forced on her. This was partnership, mutual respect, genuine affection. This was what love was supposed to feel like. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Aaron rested his forehead against hers. I want to do this right. I want to court you properly, take you to town dances, let everyone see us together. I want them to know that you are the woman I have chosen, and I am proud to have you at my side. I would like that, Sarah said, smiling up at him, though you know there will be talk. Let them talk. They will see soon enough that you are the best thing that ever happened to this town, just like you are the best thing that ever happened to me. They walked back to the house hand in hand, and that night Sarah slept better than she had in years, knowing that she was loved and safe. Aaron was true to his word about courting Sarah properly. Every Sunday, they drove into town for church, and Aaron made a point of sitting beside Sarah in the pew, holding her hand where everyone could see. After services, he would introduce her to people, talking about what a wonderful job she was doing managing his household. Slowly, the attitude in town began to shift. It helped that Aaron was well respected in the community. He was known as honest and hardworking, and people trusted his judgment. If he vouched for Sarah, then maybe the stories her ex-husband had told were not the whole truth, and anyone who saw them together could see the genuine affection between them. In November, there was a harvest dance at the community hall. Aaron asked Sarah to accompany him, and she spent an entire day making a new dress from fabric he had bought for her, a soft green that brought out her eyes. When she came downstairs that evening, Aaron stared at her for so long she began to feel self-conscious. "You look beautiful," he finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "The most beautiful woman I have ever seen." The dance was both better and worse than Sarah expected. Better because Aaron never left her side, dancing with her again and again despite his admitted lack of skill. Worse because Charles was there. He had apparently decided to extend his stay in Wichita, and he watched Sarah and Aaron from across the room with barely concealed anger. Finally, during a break in the music, he approached them. "Sarah, I need to speak with you, privately." "No," Aaron said before Sarah could respond. "You have nothing to say to her that you cannot say in front of me." Charles's jaw tightened. "This is between me and my wife." "Ex-wife," Sarah corrected firmly, "and Aaron is right. Anything you have to say, you can say to both of us." Charles looked around at the people watching with interest, then forced a smile. "I have decided to be generous. Despite everything, I am willing to take you back, Sarah. We can move past your little episode and return to our life together." Sarah stared at him in disbelief. "Are you insane? I would rather die than go back to you." "You are not thinking clearly," Charles said, his voice taking on that patronizing tone she remembered so well. "You are confused and making poor decisions. This rancher has taken advantage of your vulnerable state, but I am willing to forgive you." Aaron stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "The lady has made herself clear. She does not want you. She never wants to see you again. If you had any decency, you would accept that and leave her alone." "Decency?" Charles laughed harshly. "You talk about decency while you have my wife living in your house unchaperoned? Everyone knows what that means." Before Aaron could respond, Sarah stepped between them. "I am not your wife, Charles. I am not your property. I am a free woman who has chosen to build a new life, and that life does not include you. Go back to our old town. Find some other woman to control, though I pity whoever she is. But leave me alone." Charles's face flushed dark red. "You will regret this, Sarah. When he gets tired of you and throws you out, do not come crawling back to me." "That will never happen," Aaron said flatly, "because unlike you, I know what I have, and I am going to marry her." The room went silent. Sarah turned to stare at Aaron, her eyes wide. Aaron looked at her, and she saw love and determination and a hint of apology in his expression. "I am sorry," he said to her, ignoring everyone else. "I wanted to ask you properly at the right time, but I'm not going to let him keep hurting you. So I am asking now in front of everyone, Sarah Ashford, will you marry me?" Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, so everyone could hear, "Yes, I will marry you." Aaron pulled her into his arms and kissed her soundly, to the applause and cheers of the assembled townspeople. When they broke apart, Charles was gone, having slipped out during the commotion. Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she believed that he might actually leave her alone now that it was clear she had moved on completely. The next weeks were a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Sarah wanted something simple, but the town women, perhaps feeling guilty for their earlier treatment of her, insisted on helping. Mrs. Henderson, her former landlady, offered her parlor for the ceremony. The dressmaker who had refused to hire Sarah now volunteered to make her wedding dress. The restaurant owner's wife brought by recipes and offered to provide the wedding meal. Sarah was overwhelmed by the kindness, and she told Aaron as much one evening as they sat together planning the details. "People want to do the right thing," Aaron said. "They just needed someone to show them the truth. Now they see you as you really are, and they want to make amends. I never thought I would feel welcome here, and now I am planning my wedding surrounded by people who have become friends." Aaron took her hand. "This is just the beginning. Wait until we have been married 50 years, and you are the grand dame of Wichita." Sarah laughed. 50 years? You're very confident, Mr. Lawson." "About you and me? Absolutely. About my ability to make it that long without burning down the kitchen? Less so. I am going to be lost without you managing the house." "Lucky for you, I will still be there after we are married." "About that," Aaron said, suddenly serious, "I want you to know that nothing has to change unless you want it to. We can take our time, go at whatever pace you are comfortable with. I am not expecting. That is, I do not want you to feel pressured." Sarah put her finger over his lips, touched by his concern. "I know what you are trying to say, and I love you for it. But Aaron, I trust you completely. When we are married, I want it to be a real marriage, not just on paper, but in every way." Aaron kissed her palm. "Are you sure?" "I have never been more sure of anything." They were married on a clear December morning, with the winter sun streaming through the windows of Mrs. Henderson's parlor. Sarah wore a simple but elegant dress of ivory silk, and she carried wildflowers that Aaron had somehow found despite the season. Aaron wore a new suit, and Sarah thought he was the handsomest man she had ever seen. The ceremony was performed by the town minister, and when Aaron slipped the ring on her finger, Sarah felt tears of joy run down her face. This was real. This was forever. This was the new beginning she had dreamed of but never quite believed possible. At the reception, the entire town seemed to turn out to celebrate. Sarah danced with Aaron, with Tom and Pete and Billy from the ranch, with the mayor and the storekeeper and a dozen other men. She talked with the women, who welcomed her as one of their own, and she accepted their congratulations and best wishes with genuine warmth. As the afternoon drew to a close, Aaron whisked her away in the wagon, decorated with ribbons and trailing tin cans tied on by his ranch hands. They drove back to the ranch through the winter landscape, both giddy with happiness and the reality of what they had done. That night, Aaron carried Sarah over the threshold of their home, and she laughed with pure joy. He set her down gently in the parlor, and they stood there for a moment just looking at each other. "Hello, Mrs. Lawson," Aaron said softly. "Hello, Mr. Lawson. Are you happy?" Sarah reached up and cupped his face in her hands. "I am so happy I can barely believe it is real. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I would spend the rest of my days alone, judged and pitied. And now here I am, married to the most wonderful man in the world, with a home and a future and hope." Aaron pulled her close. "I promise I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me." "I could never regret it. You showed me what love is supposed to be. You gave me back my life." They kissed slowly and deeply, and when Aaron lifted her into his arms and carried her upstairs, Sarah went willingly, knowing that whatever happened next, they would face it together. The early months of their marriage were blissful. Sarah had worried that intimacy might be difficult for her after the trauma of her first marriage, but Aaron was patient and gentle, always putting her comfort first. He showed her that physical love could be a joyful sharing between equals, not the grim obligation it had been with Charles. Sarah bloomed under his care, becoming more confident and more herself than she had ever been. They settled into the routine of married life, and Sarah discovered that she loved being Aaron's wife. She loved watching him work, the way his muscles moved under his shirt as he repaired fences or moved cattle. She loved the way he came in from a long day smelling of horses and sunshine and leather. She loved the quiet evenings when they would sit together reading or talking, and the nights when they would hold each other close. In February, Sarah missed her monthly courses, and by March she was certain she was pregnant. She told Aaron one evening after supper, too nervous to wait for the right moment. Aaron's face went through several expressions in quick succession: shock, joy, fear, then joy again. Truly, we are going to have a baby? In the fall, I think, October or November. Aaron let out a whoop of delight and picked her up, spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to put her down. We are going to have a baby, whoa, he kept saying, as if he could not quite believe it. I am going to be a father. Are you happy? Sarah asked, suddenly needing reassurance. Happy? Sarah, I am beyond happy. I am terrified and thrilled and amazed all at once. We made a life together. That is the most incredible thing in the world. As spring turned to summer and Sarah's belly grew, Aaron became increasingly protective. He insisted she rest more, hired one of the ranch hands' wives to come help with the heavy housework, and fussed over her like she was made of glass. Sarah found it both endearing and frustrating. I am pregnant, not dying, she told him one day when he tried to stop her from hanging laundry. Women have been doing this for thousands of years. I know, but you are not just any woman. You are my wife, carrying my child, and I will not take any chances with either of you. Sarah softened at the worry in his eyes. I promise I will be careful, but you have to let me live my life. I cannot spend the next 5 months doing nothing. They compromised, with Sarah agreeing to avoid heavy lifting and Aaron agreeing to stop hovering quite so much. As summer deepened, Sarah loved watching her body change, loved feeling the baby move inside her. Aaron would put his hand on her belly at night, his face full of wonder when he felt the kicks and movements. Strong already, he would say, just like his mother. Or her mother, Sarah would counter. Either way, this child is going to be amazing. How could he or she not be with you as a mother? In July, Charles Whitmore returned to Wichita one last time. Sarah was in town with Aaron, shopping for supplies, when Charles approached them on the street. Sarah felt fear spike through her, but Aaron's hand on her back was steady and reassuring. Sarah, Charles said, his eyes going to her swollen belly, his face twisted with something ugly. I see you have wasted no time replacing me. Charles, what do you want? Sarah asked, keeping her voice level. I want you to know that I have remarried. A much younger woman, much prettier than you and far more biddable. I am quite happy, and I thought you should know. Sarah felt a surge of pity for this unknown woman, followed by relief that it was no longer her problem. I hope you treat her better than you treated me, and I hope she has the courage to leave when you inevitably show your true colors. Charles's face reddened. You always were an ungrateful woman. I gave you everything, and you threw it away. You gave me nothing but pain and fear, Sarah said clearly, and I am grateful every day that I found the strength to leave. I am also grateful that you found someone else, because it means you might finally leave me alone. I am married now, Charles, happily married to a good man. I am having his child. My life has moved on, and you need to do the same. Charles looked at Aaron, who had remained silent but watchful. And you? You think you know her? But you do not. She is manipulative and unstable. One day you will wake up and realize you have made a terrible mistake. Aaron's voice was cold as ice. The only mistake was yours. You had something precious, and you were too much of a fool to see it. Now get out of our sight before I forget I am a civilized man. Charles stood there for another moment, then turned and walked away. Sarah watched him go, and she realized something profound. She was not afraid anymore. Charles no longer had the power to hurt her, because she had built a new life far stronger than anything he could destroy. Are you all right? Aaron asked quietly. I am better than all right. I am free. Truly free, for the first time since I married him. They went home that day, and Sarah never saw Charles Whitmore again. Occasionally, she would hear news from the old town, stories that confirmed he was the same cruel man he had always been. His new wife left him within 2 years, and he went through 2 more after that. Sarah felt sorry for those women, but could not regret the path that had led her here, to this life, to Aaron. In early November, Sarah went into labor. It was long and difficult, and there were moments when she thought she could not continue. But Aaron stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her face with cool cloths, telling her how strong she was, how proud he was of her. When their son finally arrived, squalling and red-faced and perfect, Sarah cried from exhaustion and relief and overwhelming love. Aaron held the baby with shaking hands, tears running down his face as he looked at his child for the first time. He is perfect, Aaron whispered. Absolutely perfect. They named him Samuel, after Aaron's father who had died in the war. Samuel had Aaron's blue eyes and Sarah's dark hair, and from the beginning he was a happy, curious child. Sarah had worried that motherhood might bring back bad memories of her first marriage, but instead she found it healing. She could give Samuel all the love and security she had been denied, and watching Aaron with their son, patient and gentle and devoted, made her fall in love with him all over again. The years that followed were good ones. The ranch prospered, and Aaron's reputation as an honest rancher and businessman grew. Sarah became a respected member of the community, known for her kindness and her strength. People still sometimes whispered about her past, but it was with admiration for how far she had come, not judgment. When Samuel was 2, Sarah gave birth to a daughter they named Emma. She had Sarah's eyes and Aaron's smile, and she was a firecracker from the moment she could walk. 2 years after that came another son, Jacob, who was quieter than his siblings but just as loved. Sarah loved watching her family grow, loved the chaos and noise and laughter that filled the house. She had gone from a woman who thought she would never have children to a mother of 3, and the joy of it never faded. Aaron was a devoted father, teaching the boys to ride and care for the ranch, reading stories to Emma, making sure all 3 children knew they were loved and valued. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Aaron gave Sarah a gift. It was a small leather-bound journal, and inside he had written, "To my wife, Sarah. 5 years ago, I saw a woman sitting on a bench, lost and determined and beautiful. I did not know then that she would change my life in every possible way. You have made me happier than I ever thought possible. You have given me a home, a family, a purpose. You have shown me what love truly is, what partnership looks like, what it means to build a life with someone. I love you more today than the day we married, and I will love you more tomorrow than today. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for being exactly who you are. All my love, always, Aaron." Sarah read it through tears, then pulled Aaron into a fierce embrace. "I love you so much," she whispered against his neck. "Thank you for seeing me when everyone else looked away. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for giving me this life." "We gave each other this life," Aaron corrected, "and I would not change a single moment of it." The children grew, and the ranch grew with them. Samuel showed a natural talent for working with horses, and by the time he was 12, he was helping break and train the new stock. Emma was fearless, climbing fences and racing across the prairie on her pony, and Jacob had a quiet way with cattle that reminded Aaron of his own father. Sarah watched her children become themselves, unique and confident and kind, and she knew she had broken the cycle. They would never know the fear she had lived with, never doubt that they were loved, never have to survive the way she had survived. That was her gift to them, and it was more valuable than any inheritance of land or money. Charles Whitmore did not trouble them again. Sarah heard through the grapevine that he had moved to California and married for the 5th time. She did not think about him often, and when she did, it was with pity rather than anger. He would never have what she had because he did not know how to truly love anyone but himself. On their 10th anniversary, Aaron took Sarah back to the rise behind the house where he had first told her he loved her. The children were staying with Tom and his wife for the night, giving them a rare evening alone. "Do you remember the first time I brought you here?" Aaron asked as they watched the sunset. "Of course. You told me you loved me, and I thought my heart would burst from happiness. Do you know what I thought that day? Tell me." "I thought that I was the luckiest man alive. And 10 years later, I still think that every single day. You are my best friend, my partner, my love. You have given me everything I could ever want, and I would live these 10 years over and over again if I could." Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. "We have built something wonderful, have not we? A life worth living, a family worth fighting for." "You built it," Aaron said. "I just gave you the tools. You took what that bastard tried to destroy and you made it into something beautiful. You survived, Sarah, and then you thrived. That is all you." "It is all us," Sarah corrected. "I could not have done any of this without you. You saved me, Aaron." "No," he said firmly, tilting her face up to look at him. "You saved yourself. I just had the good sense to see what you were capable of when no one else could. And I'm so grateful I did because these have been the best years of my life." They kissed as the sun set behind them, and Sarah felt the same flutter in her chest that she had felt on their wedding day. Some things never changed, and the way Aaron made her feel was one of them. The years continued to pass, marked by seasons and harvests, by children growing and the ranch expanding. Samuel married at 22, bringing home a sweet-faced girl named Mary, who quickly became like a daughter to Sarah. They built a house on the far end of the ranch property, and Sarah became a grandmother before she turned 40. Emma chose a different path, marrying a banker in town and moving to Wichita proper. She had 3 children and became active in the town's growing women's organizations, fighting for better education and opportunities. Sarah was proud of her daughter's fire and determination. Jacob took over more and more of the ranch operations as Aaron began to slow down, his body bearing the marks of a lifetime of hard work. Sarah's hair began to show silver, and she noticed lines around her eyes when she looked in the mirror, but Aaron told her she was more beautiful than ever. On their 20th anniversary, the entire family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Sarah looked around the table at her children, her grandchildren, the friends who had become family, and Aaron at her side, and she felt a profound sense of peace. This was what she had survived for. This was what all the pain and fear and struggle had been leading to. After the party, when everyone had gone home or to bed, Sarah and Aaron sat on the porch as they had done thousands of times before. "Do you ever think about how different your life could have been?" Aaron asked. "If you had not found the courage to leave? If you had never come to Wichita?" Sarah considered the question. "Sometimes, but I do not dwell on it, because it does not matter. I made the choices I made, and they led me here, to you, to this, and I would not change any of it. Not even the bad parts? Not even those. They made me who I am. They taught me that I was stronger than I thought, and they made me appreciate what we have so much more." Aaron pulled her close, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. 20 years of marriage, and Sarah still felt the same sense of rightness she had felt on their wedding day. This was where she belonged. This was home. The years continued to roll by with the steady rhythm of ranch life. Sarah was 50 when Aaron turned 54, and they laughed about getting old together. Aaron's hair was completely gray now, and his movements were slower, but his eyes still lit up when he looked at Sarah. She had filled out a bit with age, and her face showed the marks of a life well lived, but Aaron told her she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Samuel had taken over most of the ranch operations, and he ran it with the same dedication and integrity his father had shown. Jacob worked alongside his brother, and together they were expanding the herd and improving the breeding stock. Emma visited regularly from town, bringing her children and her boundless energy. Sarah spent her days now in lighter pursuits. She helped Mary with the grandchildren, she maintained the garden, she preserved food and mended clothes. But she also took time to simply enjoy the life she had built. She would sit on the porch with a book or walk through the prairie grass, remembering the girl she had been when she first arrived in Kansas. One summer evening, when they were both in their 60s, Aaron took Sarah's hand and said, "I want to tell you something." Sarah heard the seriousness in his tone and set down her knitting. "What is it?" "I have been feeling tired lately, more than usual. I went to see the doctor in town last week, and he says my heart is not as strong as it used to be. He says I need to take things easy, not work so hard." Sarah felt fear clutch at her chest. "How bad is it?" "I am not dying tomorrow," Aaron said with a gentle smile. "But I'm not going to live forever either. None of us do. I just wanted you to know, so we could make the most of whatever time we have left." Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. "I cannot imagine my life without you." "You will not have to, not for a long time yet. But when that day comes, I want you to remember something. You were strong before you met me, and you will be strong after I am gone. You survived so much. Sarah, you rebuilt your entire life from nothing. You can survive anything, including losing me. I do not want to survive losing you. I want to grow old with you, die in my sleep at 90 with you beside me." Aaron pulled her into his arms. "That is the plan. But if it does not work out that way, I need to know you will be all right. Can you promise me that?" Sarah held him tightly, breathing in his familiar scent. "I promise. But you have to promise to fight, to take care of yourself, to give us as many years as possible." "I promise." Aaron kept his word, cutting back on the heavy ranch work and letting Samuel and Jacob handle most of the operations. He spent more time with Sarah, taking slow walks around the property, sitting on the porch in the evenings, helping with the grandchildren. They were in their 70s when Aaron's heart finally began to fail in earnest. The doctor said it could be any time, weeks or months, but not years. Sarah refused to leave his side, and their children rallied around them. Samuel moved them into the main house so Sarah would not be alone, and the family took turns sitting with Aaron, sharing memories and saying their goodbyes. Aaron remained lucid until the end, and on a clear morning in October he called Sarah to his bedside. "Do you remember the day we met?" he asked, his voice weak but clear. "Every moment," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "You were the most handsome man I had ever seen, and you offered me hope when I had none left." "I saw a woman who survived," Aaron said, echoing his words from so long ago, "and I was right. You survived, Sarah. You took a broken life and made it beautiful. You gave me 46 years of the greatest happiness I could imagine. You gave me children and grandchildren and a life worth living. Thank you, my love. Thank you for choosing me." "You were the easiest choice I ever made," Sarah whispered, holding his hand. "I love you, Aaron Lawson. I will always love you." "And I love you, Sarah Lawson, until the stars fall from the sky." Aaron closed his eyes and took his last breath with Sarah holding his hand and their children surrounding them. Sarah stayed there for a long time, holding the hand of the man who had saved her life, who had loved her completely, who had shown her what happiness could be. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people, testament to the life Aaron had lived and the respect he had earned. Sarah stood at the graveside, flanked by her children and grandchildren, and she did not cry. She had cried all her tears in private. Now she stood tall, remembering Aaron's words. She was a woman who survived, and she would survive this too. The weeks and months after Aaron's death were difficult. Sarah had to learn to live alone for the first time in nearly 5 decades. But she was not truly alone. Her family surrounded her, and the community that had once judged her now supported her. She found purpose in helping with the grandchildren, in maintaining the gardens Aaron had loved, in preserving the legacy they had built together. On what would have been their 50th anniversary, Sarah rode out to the rise where Aaron had first told her he loved her. She was 74 years old, but she still remembered how to sit a horse. She stood at the top of the rise, looking out over the ranch that had been her home for so many years, and she talked to Aaron as if he were standing beside her. "We did it," she said to the wind. "We built something that will last. Samuel and Jacob are running the ranch better than we ever did. Emma is fighting for women to have the vote, and I think she might just win. We have 11 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, and every one of them knows they are loved. We took 2 broken people and made a family, a legacy, a life, and I would not change a single moment of it." She stood there until the sun began to set, then rode slowly back to the house. Samuel was waiting on the porch, worry on his face until he saw her. "You all right, Ma?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. I just needed to talk to your father." "Do you think he heard you?" Sarah smiled. "I know he did. Your father always heard me even when no one else would listen." Sarah lived another 8 years, long enough to see Emma's dream of women's suffrage become reality in Kansas, long enough to hold her first great-great-grandchild, long enough to see the ranch prosper into the 20th century. She died peacefully in her sleep at 82, and the town of Wichita mourned the loss of one of its most beloved citizens. At her funeral, Samuel told the story of how his parents had met, how his father had seen something in his mother that no one else could see, how they had built a love story that spanned half a century. "My mother survived things that would have destroyed most people," Samuel said, "and she did not just survive, she thrived. She built a life of love and purpose and meaning. She showed all of us what strength looks like, what courage means, what it is to truly live." My father used to say he saw a woman who survived, but by the time she died, she was so much more than that. She was a woman who loved, who built, who created something lasting, and we are all better for having known her. Sarah was buried beside Aaron on the rise overlooking the ranch, and on her headstone her children inscribed the words Aaron had said to her so long ago. She survived, she thrived, she loved. The ranch continued for generations, passed down through Samuel's children and their children after them. The story of Aaron and Sarah became family legend, told and retold to new generations. How a woman fleeing a terrible marriage found love with a cowboy who saw her true worth. How they built a ranch and a family and a legacy that endured. How love and respect and partnership could heal even the deepest wounds. In Wichita, Kansas, the Lawson name became synonymous with integrity and hard work. The ranch that Aaron built and Sarah helped maintain became one of the most successful in the region. And while the world changed around them, becoming more modern and complicated with each passing year, the story of Sarah and Aaron remained constant, a reminder of what was possible when 2 people truly saw each other, truly loved each other, truly built a life together. Sarah Ashford had arrived in Wichita with nothing but a carpetbag and a reputation she did not deserve. She had been called crazy, unstable, hysterical, but Aaron Lawson had looked past the lies and seen the truth, a woman who had survived against terrible odds, a woman of courage and strength and resilience, and together they had proven that love could conquer even the darkest past, that 2 broken people could make each other whole, that happy endings were possible for those brave enough to reach for them. Their love story became a testament to the power of seeing someone truly, of believing in them when no one else would, of building something beautiful from the ashes of pain. And long after they were gone, their legacy lived on in the land they had worked, the family they had created, and the example they had set for what love should be: patient, kind, respectful, enduring, and absolutely worth fighting for.